It seems like every single month there's a major fire in Magnolia County, and area residents are flat out sick of it. At a county board meeting in early October, Darrell and Kerry Sue Williams approach the podium and are visibly agitated. Darrell asks,
"How could a place that's so rainy have so many fires? Why can't you sons of guns figure out that we need aerial protection? How many more buildings are going to have to burn down before you jack-offs do something about it?"
Kerry Sue concurs and speculates that they'll have to have a loss of life for someone on the board to care. Board members are deeply unimpressed by the couple, thank them for their time, and then tell them to sit down. The Williams are furious and vow to make the board care. The next week, they invite a large group of their fellow farmers over to their home to organize a large demonstration at the November board meeting, demanding a new fire station with a helicopter depot. One of the attendees recommends demanding a police headquarters too, since crime has gotten out of hand in recent days. Everyone nods their head in agreement and pledges to tell everyone they know to attend the meeting. By the time the November meeting rolls around, it's standing room only, and board members are visibly rattled by the attendance. They quickly offer to hold a referendum to see if the community wants to bond for additional city service buildings. The farmers are thrilled and they head over to the Limza bar to celebrate with a drink before heading home. However, the board president adds a poison pill to the referendum. You see, the referendum will not only be for a fire station and police headquarters, but also a new combined city-county building that would be home to all city and county staff. And this building would be more expensive to build than the other two facilities combined. The fire station will be constructed west of the bus depot and will require a costly, difficult to construct, and politically toxic connection from Linden Street to Short Street and potentially from Linden to 3rd Street to be viable. The police headquarters, on the other hand, would be constructed in an undeveloped forest across the river from Bend proper, would require an expensive new bridge, destruction of pristine forests, and annexation of new land into the city. This would inevitably extend development near the farmers that demanded the service buildings in the first place. But even with the poison pill in place, the referendum easily passes, shocking the board and the farmers alike. Darrell and Kerry Sue are furious. They know that this will lead to more development pressures on their farm. They blame the county board and vow to make them pay, sooner or later, in their own special way. In this episode, we're going to improve the community by adding 3 major city service buildings. We'll also continue to expand along the river bend and add much-needed connectivity throughout the developed areas. And near the end, we'll name a whole bunch of districts based on your feedback, so stick around until then. And if you're excited about the fire station, hit the like button. And if you're more excited about the police headquarters, hit the like button for that too, or drop an emoji representing your choice for the sake of engagement. And before we jump in, I want to give a huge shout out to today's video sponsor, Raycon. If you've been watching my streams on Thursdays, you'll know that I'm a bit of a night owl. And when I'm not streaming late into the evening, I'm usually watching YouTube videos and trying not to wake up my family by using my Raycons. Raycon's everyday earbuds look, feel, and sound better than ever. They offer 8 hours of playtime and 32 hours of battery life. One of my favorite features of the earbuds is that they have different sound profiles for different types of music, which is great because I have eclectic tastes. Last year, I listened to No More Lies by Thundercat and Tame Impala 52 times, and my #1 artist was Master Plan Music. Surprising, I know. But I also love artists like Billy Joel and Garth Brooks, as well as podcasts, and the profiles make everything sound good. I also love the noise isolation and awareness modes. Isolation mode completely blocks out the sounds around you, while the awareness mode is handy if you're walking around a busy downtown area and need to know what's going on around you. If all of this sounds good to you, click on the link in the description box or go to buyraycon.com/cityplanner to get 15% off your Raycon purchase plus free shipping. A huge shout out to Raycon for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to Magnolia County. In today's episode, we're going to be adding a variety of important city service buildings, but before we can do that, we've got to spend some development points and unlock them. And there's really just 2 things that I want to unlock. First is going to be the fire station, which is 2 development points. And next is the police headquarters, which is 2 development points. Now, you might have been thinking that we're going to unlock the city hall, but I'm a little bit reluctant to do that just yet because I'm not sure that Bend is where this goes. The city hall can only be placed once, so we've got to be really careful about where we place it. And now that all of our buildings are unlocked, let's move on to building our fire station. As was mentioned in the intro, we're going to be building our new fire station directly west of our bus station on this little triangular parcel right here. And I'm guessing that many of you are looking at this location thinking that this is a terrible location for what will be the largest fire station in the entire county. But I think it's actually a pretty good location for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, we have really poor fire coverage over here, and we've got to build something. Be it a firehouse or a fire station, the coverage in this area is actually worse than almost any other location in the county, so something has to be built. But I think that the fire station is the right choice because we're going to have our fire helicopters right here. And if we zoom out to county level, you can see that this is basically the center of the county. And that's an important consideration because it means that the helicopters could basically reach anywhere in the county from this location in the same amount of time. And it's also along the banks of the river, which means that they could fill their buckets up with water before fighting the fire. But I also think that this location has the potential to be well connected by roads. With just a couple of targeted connections, we could have excellent access into downtown Bend and the Copper Valley Industrial Park. So that's why I want to connect Short Street to Linden Street, and we're also going to be making a connection between Middle Street right here in the highway, because with those two connections, we should have excellent vehicular access to the fire station. But beyond those potential connections, which will become actual connections in just a moment, this location is already well connected to the densest portion of our county, because we're going to be extending Holly Street to University Avenue and building our fire station there. If you take a look, Holly Street is connected to Main Street, which connects all the way into the heart of downtown Bend. So this is already an excellent location that will only get better as time goes on. So let's get to building our fire station, and we'll begin by extending Holly Street to what will become University Avenue. And I'll just overshoot so we get a beautiful connection all the way through there. And then we'll place our fire station. Now, there's one thing I'm thinking about here. I want to line up the driveway on the right-hand side of the fire station with this intersection right here. I think we're going to add a roundabout because I want to have a direct access from that drive to University Avenue, and I think the roundabout could help facilitate that. So I'm going to place this temporarily, and maybe it'll be finally, but I have a sneaking suspicion we're going to need to move this over just a little bit because I want to add this roundabout here and then add a road from this drive into the roundabout, and I have a feeling this will be tricky because of the angle of Short Street. So let's snap to existing geometry and the 90-degree angles. We'll find the center of this and attempt to come right in. No dice. So we'll need to scoot over just a little bit. And now we have a nice connection into that roundabout, and we'll need to scoot over the fire station just a little bit. So I'm moving this because I want the center of that drive on Garnett Street. I think that this should be just about right. And that looks pretty darn good. The one thing that doesn't look good is we've got Holly Street popping up. So I'm going to remove this temporarily. Then we'll grade for the street. And then we'll reestablish that connection. Very good. Now, part of the poison pill associated with the referendum for all of these city buildings was that many of the buildings had a number of upgrades associated with them. And for our fire station, that means that we are going to be able to build our training facilities, our disaster response unit, and our helipad. So let's start out with our training facilities. And what this does is help firefighters stay in top shape and thus extinguish fires more efficiently. So this will help Magnolia County escape from being a little mini Verde Beach. Then we can add this on, and you can see it adds a ton to the building. I absolutely love how much more grand this makes the building feel. It also varies the architecture a bit. I just really like it. Now, this thing was very expensive, $250,000 and $77,000 per month in upkeep. We'll need to keep an eye on this. Thankfully, we're making $22,000 per hour, so we don't need to worry about running out of money. Next, we're going to add our disaster response unit. And basically, this is a specialized service that searches for survivors in collapsed buildings. Now, this happens with just a normal fire truck, but it's really painfully slow, so adding this should really speed that process up. This is very expensive though. It's about the same amount as our previous upgrade in terms of the upfront cost and the ongoing maintenance. So thankfully we have all of that overhead. But because this is a sub building, I want to grade for this first because this will go down a hill. And then if we want to fix it, we'll have to delete the entire fire station. We're not doing that. So let's just grade up front. And I'm thinking we're going to put that on the right-hand side of this fire station. And then maybe we'll backfill the rest of this with row homes or something like that. But we'll start out with an exaggerated pad for this building. We'll add this. And then I'm going to fix the grading on the side right up front. And we'll figure out the back later on. And then finally, we're going to add a helipad as well. This one's actually pretty inexpensive. It's only $15,000 up front and then $35,000 in ongoing maintenance. And this is the thing that we care the most about anyway. This is why we're building the fire station. This will provide us our firefighting helicopters. We can only add this in this one location, but it is an absolute necessity. And with that, our fire station is complete, and it is absolutely wonderful. This is exactly what the county has needed. Now, before we move on from this area, I want to add a few more things. I mentioned that road along the back. This will provide additional access into this district. There we go. That provides some much needed connectivity. And next I want to add in a medical clinic. Now, the reason this isn't part of the referendum is, at least in the US, oftentimes medical facilities are private in nature. So this would be built by a private company and not the government. So that said, we're going to place that right across the street. Oftentimes you'll see firefighting facilities and clinics within close proximity of one another. And one of the reasons you might see this is the noise associated with each of the facilities. You'd expect that there'd be sirens from the ambulances and sirens from the fire station, and neither would be disturbed by each other. So good location from that perspective. Also, all the access that we're providing the fire station, the medical facility is benefiting from that as well. And then finally, as a part of this project, we will be extending university just a little bit further. So with the exact same cross section, we'll extend this all the way down to here. And we'll add one more roundabout down here as well. Or at least we'll try and fail. So let's add this, and then we'll have to reestablish Holly Street. Oh no, and it's turned University Avenue into Holly Street. That is not what we wanted to do. Oh, that's so frustrating. Okay, and I'm not sure what this nub is for. We'll have to figure that out in the future. For now, it's good enough. And actually, I've got another way to resolve this. We'll extend University to there, and then upgrade our highway to here. And there we go. That keeps our name all the way along here. It's silly, but we've got to do what we've got to do. And then finally, we'll add a couple of row homes through here and remove some of the landscaping that we're likely to replace with something a bit more manicured. And there we go. That's looking pretty good. Now, I think that this is where we will halt development for now. This is one of those cases where you kind of need to not overdo it. And I think that the hospital might reserve this entire parcel for future expansion. And for this little irregular parcel, we could have some sort of a custom plaza or something of that nature in here. The rest of this looks really good, and I'm really pleased with how it turned out. So let's move on to increasing our connectivity. Because of resident concerns about the location of the new fire station, Bend and Magnolia County will be building new roads to improve connectivity through the Finger Hills. The county will be extending Middle Street to the highway, where Bend will be connecting Short Street to Linden Street. Now I want to begin with Middle Street because I think this one will probably be a little bit more straightforward. Basically, we're going to take this road and send it straight up the side of the hill, hopefully at a reasonable grade. We'll switch back around right here, continue to increase our elevation, switch back one more time, and then connect up to our highway. So to do that, we're going to need to purchase a few tiles, and we'll need to purchase this one, and then likely this one as well. And the very first thing I want to do is add a node right about here so that we can sever Middle Street. And then we're going to level a pad right here, and then we're going to use our level terrain tool to slope from this flat pad right here down to Middle Street. And then we'll extend a highway up here. And that's about a 7% grade, which seems okay in my book. And then I want to make sure that we're not doing wonky stuff like that. And though we could have come and had a retaining wall along the side of the hill here, I would assume that that would be significantly more expensive than just doing a bit of blasting. Oh my goodness, Serenity now. I don't know why this was so hard. Now we are going to focus on our next connection, and we're basically going to try to hit this location. So let's begin by flattening a pad right around here. And then this one's already fairly flat, but we will extend it out just in case. And then we'll use our slope terrain tool once again. Right mouse click up here, left down here, slope up. It's always a trick doing, whoa, that is not what I wanted to happen. I was gonna say, it's always a trick doing this as you want to try to not build up the hillside. But of course, I've done a lot of nasty things to the hill. So you didn't see this, I didn't see this. We're just doing things just as we should be doing them. Oh, and it's just as it's always been. That's how it's always looked. And then for our final connection, it should be fairly straightforward. We'll right mouse click up here, left down here, and I'm going to try not to carve into the hillside too much, but we'll fix it if we have to. And then for all of these, we're going to use our simple curve mode and make sure we have our guidelines on. and then just curve around the bend like this. Oh my goodness. And then finally this one as well. And there we go. That is pretty good. Now it's pretty neat that the lines on the road change so you can't pass through here and then you can pass up this way. I like that a lot. I am going to soften some of the kind of strange looking edges. We may leave some carving. That happens. So stuff like this, we'll leave that, and maybe right here as well. But on this end, we won't leave that. That looks terrible. And I really wish that we could add some sort of fence along here. It looks absolutely crazy without it, but you know, no guardrails. We have perfect drivers here. We won't see any accidents. It'll be just fine. And then bluntly, I think I did a pretty poor job on this one. So I think we will do a little bit of improvement along the bottom edge, and then maybe we'll allow the carving to occur up here. There we go. And then we've got one final connection to make right into our highway. Now, I have a sneaking suspicion that there's going to be a lot of right-hand traffic going through here. We're going to keep an eye on that for just a moment, but if we see a lot of that, I might add a slip. Look at that. That's ridiculous. That was such a needed connection, apparently. So yeah, we're going to add this right away. We'll basically just upgrade that and then use a simple curve in this lane, and then downgrade those and get rid of this right-hand turn. Very good. The other thing that we could improve is you can see that this angle is a little rough. Maybe that's an understatement or the understatement of the year. So we will make this a 90-degree angle. And then I actually want to have separate turn lanes. So we are going to reconsider this just a moment. And there we go. Things appear to be flowing pretty well right here. I'm pleased with how this has turned out. Let's switch gears and go over to Short Street. So in reality, we'd probably have to see some sort of a multi-phase plan here, because what I'm going to do is pause this and sever connectivity to rebuild this road. And obviously that would never happen in a million years. So we are going to back that out to about there. And we're doing that because I want to spread out these contour lines. This is incredibly steep. And what we should be able to do now is extend this base out. And this is where we will slope to from Short Street and slope from for what is now East Magnolia Boulevard, which we'll have to fix. And then temporarily, I will sever Short Street, so we'll probably lose the name of that one as well. And we want that flat pad. Now, in this location, we're going to be turning fairly rapidly, and that's why we're building this pad. And then we'll right mouse click from here, left down here, and carve into the hillside. So the way this would likely occur is we're taking fill from up here and pushing it down here to smooth out all the curves. Now, I'm really hoping that this is under 10%. Let's see what we end up with. 16.9. That is incredibly steep. I'm going to try to improve this because I am concerned that we're going to see a whole bunch of truck traffic through here. And this will not be the height of realism, but it will make me very happy. And that gets us to about 11%. So yeah, this is maybe stretching reality a little bit, or maybe you'd have a really steep connection and live with how steep it is and ban trucks. But because it's not easy to do that, we're going to do this and it'll be just fine. And look at that. We even got Short Street to come back. Now, in the beginning, I mentioned how politically toxic and controversial this Short Street extension would be, and I think we're about to see why. I'm going to fix this sidewalk, but I have a feeling we're going to see just a ton of traffic streaming through this area. And we've got our first few vehicles, and I'm going to speed this up because I'm curious if we're going to see more traffic heading down Short Street or University Avenue. Honestly, it seems like it's 50-50. But the funny thing is, if we look at our traffic volume, it appears that it is much higher on University than Short Street. So we'll need to keep an eye on this. It feels like there's going to be a lot of traffic to me on Short Street, but maybe I'm wrong. And then while I'm thinking about it, we never added trees to University, so I'm going to do that right now. And then finally, we are going to adjust the roads down here a little bit. Right now, there really is no roadway hierarchy to speak of in this area. So what I think we're going to do is take 3rd Street and use a little bit of eminent domain on these homes and angle this in. That would solidify this as a major collector in this area. And there we go. Now, interestingly, it's taken Short Street and renamed it 3rd, which means that 3rd loops all the way around the backside of our new neighborhood. And Short Street is now this actual Short Street, but I think we're going to eliminate it because I want this connection right here to be a little bit better. It was pretty wonky and crazy. So we will say that this right-of-way for Short Street was vacated. And now I've got a question for you. Should we keep this as Short Street or rename 3rd Street Short Street? I will leave it in your guys' hands. And now with our new connections in place, let's move on to building our city-county building. We're going to be placing our city-county building in downtown Bend, right along Short Street. Yes, I have temporarily renamed this Short Street. Unless you guys tell me to take it back to 3rd, Short Street lives another day. So I want to add this building in downtown Bend, and that is why this is going to cost so much more than the police headquarters and the fire station, because we're going to have to use eminent domain on a whole block and a half of homes. So we are going to eliminate those right away, and we've cleared a very nice pad for our new city-county building. Now for this building, we're going to be using our welfare office. So this will benefit the downtown area by increasing the well-being in the surrounding neighborhood, and then we can use it as our city hall. So for this, look at it, fits perfectly within here. Could I have asked for anything better than this? Not really. So we're gonna add that right here. And I'm leaving a little bit of space on the side so that we could add landscaping or something of that nature. Actually, we're not gonna do that because you can see that there's actually an entryway over here. So we'll scooch this over, and then right here, I think that we are going to add a new alleyway. And as painful as this is, we are going to use a little bit more eminent domain. Hopefully Myrtle appeases. We are in a small town, and as a result, I think we need to have some staff parking. So we'll add that right back here. And then I'm going to add some new pedestrian facilities back here. And because we've done that and we've de-zoned this, we will increase the density back here. And then finally, I want to have some sort of park amenity back here. So we are going to add in a small playground because I don't think we can fit a plaza. Nope, that's too big. So we'll go with a small playground. And then we'll consider this an amenity for all of these homes that are back here. And the parking can be shared between the city-county building and all of these new homes. Now let's rename this. And then finally, we've got an empty parcel right here that's been empty since, I think, episode 1. We are going to add in some medium density housing. And the idea will be that because this building was placed, there's a bit more demand for housing in the area because there's a major employer right here. And as a result, we get some additional density. Now, I would imagine that in this entire area, we could start to see a bit more density along Short Street because of the connectivity and the major employer right here, but that'll have to come down the line. And as we waited for this new mid-rise to fill in, it has begun to snow, and we get to see Bend in all of its wintry glory. The exact same thing I'm seeing when I look out my window right now as well. And with the city-county building in place, let's move on to building our police department. Similar to our fire station, our police headquarters are going to be located in a place that might not make sense on first blush, but if you give it some thought, it actually makes a ton of sense. We're going to place that right about here, and to get over there, we're going to be bridging Anchor Street right across the river. And if we take a look this way, Anchor Street is actually Main Street, so it's a direct extension of the densest part of our community. So we're going to begin by adding a bridge right here, and we'll get rid of this path connection. And then I reoriented our path connection to go underneath the bridge so that you wouldn't have to deal with any conflicts on the bridge itself. Now we're going to basically follow the side of the coast here for a local road, and then a little bit behind that, we'll set our police station. And now we'll place our police headquarters, and I'm going to place that right about here, but let's turn on our snapping to the sides of the road, and we can push this back if we have to. I want to pay close attention to our contours because I don't want this to fall off the cliff, and I think that this is about where we can get it. And then before we finalize the location of our asset, I just want to take a look. You can see that there's an entryway right here, and I'm thinking that I might just back this up a little ways. And now I want to investigate this asset and see what sorts of upgrades are available to us. We have extra jail cells. That is an external building, so we'll want to make space for that. We've also got a garage extension that happens within the footprint of the building. And then we also have a helipad. And I really don't think that any of these upgrades are really important for us right now, but I do want to make sure that we don't make any of them impossible. So I think that we're going to leave this area open for future expansion of a jail if we want to, although I will admit, it seems very strange to me that the jail is kind of off the side. It seems like it should be attached to the building, but that is not something that we can do. The other thing I want to add is a parking lot specifically for the police station. You see that there's some parking in there, but I would imagine that that is for police vehicles themselves. So we'll add some sort of a visitor or maybe even staff parking off to the side. And I know that I've been known to overdo parking, so I'm going to try my best not to. We'll add one of these medium parking lots over here. I'll give a bit of separation so we can landscape around it, and we'll call it a day. Now, one thing that you might have noticed is that I added this road right here, and interestingly, that's Linden Street. We've got Lindbergh here now. I know we didn't name this Anchor Street, but I've become attached to it, so we'll leave it. And Linden Street is going to be an important connection for us, and that's why I wanted to call this one out. So as this currently stands, we have a major police station, our headquarters of our police department, all alone in a cul-de-sac. So that's not going to work. We're going to have to make another connection over here, most likely along the side of the coast. And this will open up land for additional development, and we are going to take some advantage of that today, developing a small neighborhood and an elementary school because we are in desperate need of one. So let's begin by adding a local road back here, and we are likely going to need to grade for this. You can see that there's some steep terrain back here. So I just want to take a look and see where this would make the most sense to come in, and we'll likely add that right about here. It's relatively flat. And now is where we are going to do a bit of terraforming. We've got about 30 for our brush size, and I'm going to flatten this out, make a nice pad for ourselves. And then we know that we're coming all the way up to here, and I'm wondering how many meters of elevation change this is. So I'll right mouse click up here and then come down to this flat pad and just add this. And let's see, it's about 30 meters, I'm guessing, maybe 20. So we know that if we go up about 10 meters midway through, we should have a nice gentle slope all the way up. So we'll say that our midpoint is maybe right about here. And I'm going to grade between here and here. And there we go. I initially added this as a local road, but I decided to upgrade this to a highway, and we will convert this to a local road as it makes sense. Now, from here, we've got to get up another 10 meters or so. So we'll grade a pad right here, and we've got our pad over here. Now we just have to find our path. And there we go. It's a nice, gentle road going up and to our new police department. Now, I'm really interested in seeing how much traffic this is going to carry. And I'm going to be honest with you, I would love to signalize this, but my concern is it's going to signalize everything. We really need a stop bar right here. Right now, it has a yield sign. Yeah, and we would get it on all streets. So we'll go with a yield right here. It'll be just fine. I am going to clean up and soften some of our edges here. I know that that is a little bit controversial. I see it in the comments. You guys want me to calm down, but I am who I am. I'm going to keep softening this from time to time. I got one today, but this one's got to be softened. And there we go. And now we will develop a small neighborhood directly adjacent to the police department. And I could see the city opening up this land for development to kind of recoup some of the cost of building the police station, developing all of these roads, because as it currently sits, all of this is on the city. So having some small developments available would certainly help offset the cost of some of this development. So we're not going to do anything elaborate right here. I'm going to send a road off as the delineator between our police station and this neighborhood. And I'm going to leave a little bit of space so that we can have some separation in between the police department and the folks living over here. And then we're going to try to respect our topography. I'm going to leave a bunch of units of separation in between the cliffside and the road. And this will allow us to develop some homes that have excellent views of downtown Bend. Can you imagine if we got some even taller buildings? What an excellent place this would be to live right here. And very safe. You're right next to the police department, so you'd be fine. And for the time being, I'm going to leave this layout like this. We're starting to master plan something in this area, and I freestyled a bit. I wanted something a bit more decorative. We can have some sort of a plaza through here, and then some stately homes around here. We'll have some commercial development in this area, and I think we're going to convert a bit of this road right here to be a local road. We're going to find one connection up here and likely have some townhomes along the water, something that would be very decorative, very desirable. And I think that we will make our connection right here if we can. Let's see what our slopes look like after we slope the terrain a bit. And I think that'll be acceptable. We'll just smooth out the edges, and then we want to pre-grade for some of these townhomes. And the way that we'll do that is just to boost this out a little ways right here. And we'll do the exact same thing on this other side. And then we'll use our slope terrain tool to slope along here. And I'm actually going to do this part first because I have an interesting idea. We'll pop on through and add a couple of layers of row homes, switching it up every now and then in terms of style. And as we fill this in, we've reached an impressive milestone, 15,000 population in the county, which is really exciting to see. So I wanted to pop this out because I want to try to make this have a little bit of a key wall behind it using a pedestrian path. So we're going to pull this out just a little ways. And now I want to snap to the side of a building, and I'm really nervous about getting this to work. You can see that it worked well right here in a couple of spots. However, if our heights aren't just right, you can see that it starts to drop down considerably. All right, every now and then you take on a project that makes you go, should I have done this or not? And this was that project. I decided to add a retaining wall all the way back here, and this is very difficult in Vanilla City Skylines 2. You've got to do a lot of messing around with this to try to get it to line up, and basically I had to pop this up 1.25 meters all the way along the back of the building and then have the heights messed with quite a bit to make this work. But you know what? Sometimes you've got to make a special place, and truthfully, I think that this would be a very special place to live. This would be a very special place to visit, and I think it's really exceptional. So I'm going to go with it. Now, for the rest of this, we're not going to do that. That was a little much. We are going to add an elementary school, though, and I think I might have made this harder on myself than it had to be. I'm going to see if we can fit that in right here, but we may need to break up our little grid to make it work. And even though we could fit this in, it just doesn't feel right to jam this thing in there. So we're going to remove that street, and then we'll give that a bit of extra space. Now, it's very unhappy with what I've done right here. We're going to do something that I think is going to be interesting. I want to mirror what we've done right here. So we'll do something like that. And I think that that will work quite nicely. And then for this elementary school, we're definitely going to add on a playground because we're not monsters. It's what people should do every time they build a school. Make sure that the kids have a place to play. And then what we'll end up doing is modifying the district that this other elementary school is in, call a little bit of a mulligan on what we did last time, and basically take half of this area and allocate it to this new elementary school. In fact, let's add our district over here right now. And we'll assign districts to the school right away. This will operate here in Emerson Glen, in Poplar View, Butler End, and Elmbrook. And we will be renaming these districts a little bit later on in the episode, so don't worry about the names too much. And then even though there's nothing over here, we are going to adjust that district as well. And now let's take a look at this elementary school, and we'll remove these operating districts that it's currently serving. That is a ton better, in my opinion. Now, I am curious, how is our elementary school over here looking? It is still filled to the brim, but we've got 3 students overhead, so I guess we're just fine. And for our new one, 51 students, that's completely fine. Now, before we zone this place in, let's add in a couple of parks, and I want to do something special here in this little crescent right here. So we've added a small park right here and a playground up here. We'll also add a dog park because this neighborhood will certainly need a dog park. And I think I'll add that near the police station. I think we could definitely get away with it there from a noise standpoint. And I'll actually send this right about here. And we'll stub this road to go a little bit further down. And then I'm going to play with fire. We are going to attempt to add a crossing right here. And then make a quick connection up to this neighborhood so you'd be able to access the dog park if you were living in one of these condominiums. All right, so for the rest of this, we're going to have a little bit of commercial down here. Oh my goodness, and every now and then you realize you've gone off the deep end, and this little shopping center with a couple of offices was my deep end. I don't like the buildings. I'm not sure about the design, but I think it's the best that we're gonna be able to do for right now. And hopefully, as these level up, we'll end up with something that we're a little happier with, and hopefully the landscaping will make this feel a bit more filled in as well. Now back here, we're gonna go with mostly single family residential. I'm gonna go for European just because I like the look of it, and we'll just quickly fill this in. And just like that, we are done with this neighborhood for now. Obviously, we want to extend out and continue along here, but that is not the main goal of what we're doing right here. We were just trying to recoup some funds, and I think that this development would have done it. And now with our police headquarters and neighborhood complete, let's move on to a bit of rural development. Now for our rural development today, we're going to be doing things a little bit differently than normal. I want to add one farm, but our primary focus is going to be adding communication services. And that's because in our rural areas, we're really underserved right now, and I think we've got to fix it. Now for our farms, we're going to be adding one that I've been really reluctant to add, and we're going to be adding in a textile fiber farm. For whatever reason, I got in my head that this is cotton and cotton doesn't grow in the upper Midwest, but there are some things that do grow, things such as hemp and flaxseed, and that's what we're gonna go for. And I wanna thank all of these commenters for pointing that out, that this could be hemp or cotton or flaxseed or really anything that could be a textile that could be farmed. So we are gonna add this right about here, and I'm gonna orient this towards our existing farms because our next road in our Jeffersonian grid would be right about here. We don't have access to that tile yet, and I'm not overly interested in purchasing it. So I'll add that right about here. And then we're gonna make a connection right to our highway. And before we connect this up, I just wanna see what our deficit looks like for textile farming. And it's actually not that bad. It's not as bad as I thought it was gonna be. It's one of two things that we have a deficit of. And as soon as we get this connected to power and water, we should have a surplus. Now, for whatever reason, our power didn't connect, so I'll just need to double check on this. Power can be really finicky. It's definitely a bit more challenging than the water, and I can't really even tell right now where it's missing that connection. So I'll just try this. And hopefully that won't break this area and we'll get this area connected. It did. Very good. Now let's spread this out, and I need to look at our contours. It looks like we can go fairly far back. I'm going to leave myself a couple of reminder marks. And I'm doing this because you can't see contour view when you are inside of the area tool, which is really unfortunate, but it is the situation that we're dealing with, so we will make the best of it. And there we go. If you didn't know any better, you'd probably think that this is the exact same type of farm that we've been placing everywhere, but this is indeed consumer apparel. It is a cotton farm. That is where I got cotton from. I got it in my head that this is cotton. It is cotton. But when you go into the specialized industry menu, it says textile fiber farming. That is really bizarre. Okay, whatever. Not gonna worry about it too much. Let's go and check out our production. And we've got a slight surplus now. Looking very good. Now next, I do want to turn my attention to communications. In specific, we're going to take a look at our radio masts and our telecom coverage. So When we look at this, we can see that we've actually are in a pretty bad spot in our new development and in most of our farming areas. However, by our university, we're in a good spot, as well as in our industrial parks. So we are going to add a couple of these radio masts, which should provide adequate coverage. So one of them, I think we'll place maybe like right over here, right near the farm that we just built. And then I am curious, does this need power or water? It doesn't appear to need any of it, so maybe we're going to be just fine. And then I want to double check our coverage here. Rather than spamming this entire area with radio masts, we're likely going to increase our coverage area by adding in this radio mast.
Let me fix this for you, Phil. It's a wireless network antenna.
And this does need electricity, so we will need to add that. We're going to add that extra
Wireless network antenna
to our other radio mast as well. And we're doing this because it's actually pretty modest in terms of cost, $4,000 upfront and $1,500 per month in upkeep. That is very inexpensive. And that's actually done quite a bit for us in terms of our coverage. Now let's add in our power. Should be relatively straightforward. And there we go. Now back to our communications coverage. I think technically this area is probably fine for now. I am going to add one more radio mast over here though to start to cover this area, and that will provide the rest of the coverage that we need over here. So we'll add this right about here. And then once again, we'll need to extend our power coverage out to this area. Now we are covered here, so let's extend our
wireless network antenna
once more. And we should have excellent coverage throughout this entire new neighborhood. Our fire station could probably use more coverage, but we'll be fine for now. One more radio mast right out here, right next to, well, we could actually add this down here close to King Bait and Tackle. And I'm not really sure if I talked much about this in previous episodes, but this was built in between episodes specifically to introduce Chuckles. So if you're wondering where this came from, that's where this came from. And I think that we're going to add in our next radio mast right about here, right off Empire Lane. And thankfully for this one, we shouldn't need to do anything about power. All we likely have to do is extend our
wireless network antenna,
or rather our wireless network antenna upgrade. And that'll extend our coverage area just a little bit of future proofing and pre-planning. And then the last place that we should probably add an antenna is way out here by Jamila. This is something that they would likely want to see in place. So let's add one more radio mast out here. And I am very curious. I'm going to add this right next to the substation, but I'm curious if this would cause some sort of electromagnetic interference. If you happen to know because you work in either the power or the communications industry, please let me know down in the comments. And just like before, we're going to continue to ensure that our wireless network antenna upgrade is there right off the bat. And with this, we should have excellent coverage basically everywhere throughout the entire county. I think this was a really important upgrade to make pretty much everywhere. And with our wireless infrastructure improved and our first fiber farm in place, let's move on to a little bit of landscaping and detailing. We'll begin our landscaping here, and just like in the last episode, I'm going to try to restrain myself from going absolutely crazy on landscaping, but you guys know who I am, and I'm probably going to fail at that. All of that said, not a lot is needed throughout this entire build, so we'll try to relax. I'm going to try to relax. There's less to do around our city-county building, but we will add a little bit of landscaping around here. And now I wanted to pop over here momentarily, not to add landscaping, but because I wanted to check the slopes over here because they do look a little bit rough. So even though I mentioned that we would leave some of these, I feel like I've got to taper these just a bit. And by just a bit, I mean that I'll go ham and completely flatten everything and smooth it out. And I'm really sorry, folks. I'm trying. I am me. I can't help it. I just like it to look smooth, even if it doesn't look reasonable. To me, it feels good. So we're going to do a little bit of that. And then over here, we're going to try to tastefully add some landscaping along our paths and fill in forests and other locations. And funny enough, now as the snow begins to recede, we are finally done with our landscaping, and there's just one more thing left to do: take inventory of what we've done with a brief city tour. During the city tour, I made a few small tweaks to the build, or I should be honest, I made a lot of tweaks. So I've added districts all over the entire map so that we have a whole bunch of townships. We're going to name those shortly. And I've also gone through and renamed most of the streets throughout the entire community. So now we have things like Maple Street right here, West Holly, because we also have an East Holly, Ridge Street, a whole bunch of street names. And I have preserved some of the names that I've been referencing quite often, such as Anchor Street. I've also fixed 3rd and Short Street. Apparently they do not connect anymore. So as a result, Short Street wraps all the way around here, which I love, and 3rd Street is right here. And I actually like the idea of Short Street because there were a few comments that mentioned that it could be named after a person, not necessarily the length of the street, and I love that. And while I was naming all these streets, I noticed something. Many of the high rent signs that we had in the downtown Bend area are now gone. And that got me thinking. There are 2 places in the entire community where we don't have a whole bunch of high rent signs: downtown and the university. And those districts just happen to have a welfare office. So I want to try something. We are going to assign the welfare office to specific districts before we name things, because I'm curious to see if this will improve our affordability. So for the city county building, we will assign that to everything on this side of the river, as well as Elmbrook. And then for this other welfare office, we'll go for the university, for Highland, East Bend, and I'll even include some of these towns down here as well. Now, my hope is that they will focus on these areas and help alleviate some of these high rent problems that we see. We'll have to keep an eye on that, but we're going to have a little bit of time because we've got a whole bunch of towns to name. So for all of our towns, I'm going to go through this list that I put together, and I'm going to apologize up front to 1C2 because this is going to be kind of a trick. So we are going to rename these townships right now. And Tiffany Thompson recommended Benson. Nolan Beal recommended Lebanon. Celestial Catharsis Art recommended Salem after Salem, Wisconsin. Matthew Gertholtz recommended Franklin. Kazansky recommended Taylor Ridge. SPX Durzen recommended Fruitvale. Aaron Johnson recommended Russelltown, but I think we'll take this one and make it Russell. Matt Wilson came up with my favorite name, which is mispronouncing a European city name, so we will have Milan. And lastly, Timmy recommends Hillview. But we're not done naming yet. We've got a bunch of neighborhoods to name, and we've got some excellent names for these neighborhoods as well. Now, I know that we've got a couple of new neighborhoods because Elmbrook wasn't in existence when I asked you for names, but I've picked one that I think will work great for this one as well. And we'll start there because Fred Fishface has an excellent suggestion, North Fork. And for Butler's End, Ryan K recommends Riverbend Park. Ali Jamil recommends renaming Poplar View Uptown. And then Anna Johnson recommends renaming Emerson Glen Riverside. And then VXDDR recommends renaming Cherry Brooks Mineral Hills. And then another shout out to Ali Jamil, who recommends that Willow's Corner becomes Superior. And then lastly, we'll go with Ryan Largent's suggestion to rename Vermont Creek Ike Yards, which I absolutely love. And with that, we've renamed basically everything in the county, but I am curious about what sort of an impact the welfare offices might have. So I'm gonna let this run for a couple of minutes and see if we start to see some of these high rent signs go away, or if we'll need to take some other suggestions that I've seen, such as creating a neighborhood of really small parcels. So I spent about half of February just staring at these high rent icons, and I've got to tell you, it doesn't seem like it's gotten better or worse. It seems like they're kind of moving around. And that's got me thinking. I wonder if there will always be some baseline of high rent problems in the game. And the more I think about it, maybe that's okay. You know, in reality, there will always be someone that has a tough time affording where you are. The bigger issue is if you have a whole city where that is a concern. So we're going to keep an eye on this. This is something I'm really curious about. And if you guys have had high rent problems and completely solved them, please drop a comment below letting me know your strategies. I think that this is an area where maybe we can help each other out. But with that, I think we're going to leave it here. I've really had fun with this one, and I really hope that you've enjoyed it as well. If you did, please consider hitting the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. And I really want to thank you for your time today. There's a million things that you could have been doing. You decided to hang out with me, and I appreciate that. I also appreciate all of your suggestions for naming. If I didn't pick you, it's not because your name isn't great. Keep posting. In the future, we may give you a name as well. That's where we're going to leave it today, though. Thank you so much for joining me. Take care. Bye-bye.